Give me you're tired, you're poor.
Today, the White House released its budget for 2018.
There will be massive cuts to Medicaid.
Cuts to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, aka food stamps.
Your huddled masses yearning to breathe free.
Trump signing an executive order to ban immigrants from these predominantly Muslim countries.
This is a blanket ban, at least temporary, of all individuals from specific countries.
The wretched refuse of your teeming shore.
Build that wall! Build that wall!
Fear grips immigrant communities in the U.S. as federal agents arrest hundreds across the country.
A tight-knit family of 6 ripped apart by an immigration raid, and now 4 kids are left to take care of themselves.
Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me.
They're going back. I'm telling you. They're going back.
Donald Trump now saying he would deport all Syrian refugees fleeing their war-torn country.
We don't want them here.
I lift my lamp beside the golden door.
From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Hey! Do you have what it takes to be an immigrant in Trump's America?
This competitive application process will favor applicants who can speak English.
Speak English. Speak English. The most common sense thing that I've seen in my entire life.
Al Gore's back with some more inconvenient truths.
The next generation would be justified in looking back at us and asking, what were you thinking? Couldn't you hear what the scientists were saying? Couldn't you hear what Mother Nature was screaming at you?
We can solve this, but the hope is based on the assumption that people will put political pressure on elected leaders to change not just the light bulbs, but the policies.
And we'll tell you about how you can take your next vacation to Mars.
Mars 2030 is an open-world virtual reality experience where you get to be an astronaut living on Mars in the year 2030.
We know that the user is going to get an authentic experience just like it would be if they were standing on the surface of Mars.
Cutting through the noise.
Calling BS when it counts.
And breaking down what it all means for you.
This is The Feed.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. We need to build a wall, and it has to be built quickly. All of the bad dudes, they're out. We're gonna build a wall. It's gonna be a wall that's powerful. For a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States. We're gonna build the wall. We have no choice. Who's gonna pay for the wall? Choose immigrants based on merit. We're going to have strong, incredible borders. But we have some bad hombres here. The day is over when they can stay in our country and wreak havoc. We'll begin immediate construction of a border wall. We're gonna have a very, very strict ban. A merit-based immigration system. This competitive application process will favor applicants who can speak English.
Speak English. Speak English.
Financially support themselves.
Not receive welfare.
It's measured, it's a rational approach.
The most common sense thing that I've seen in my entire life.
I think it's going to be very, very important.
Can we just call Trump's merit-based immigration system what it is?
It's a dog whistle for the economic anxiety crowd.
Bingo.
It's how you make America white again, right?
Merit-based immigration sounds like a wonderful recipe for people who think that our country's getting a little too brown or is losing our so-called Christian values.
Trump and his friends are always pretty vague about how they define merit. Look, this isn't about making America great again. It's about an administration trying to redefine what is American.
Many killings, murders, crime, drugs pouring across the border.
Donald Trump loves to tell scary stories about foreigners.
Whose loved ones were killed by illegal immigrants.
It's the main thrust of his immigration plan.
Criminal aliens who threaten innocent lives.
He peddles fear about Islamic terrorism to justify his Muslim bans.
ISIS has gotten a hold of a passport printing machine to get them into the United States.
He describes Mexicans as rapists, drug dealers, and criminals to justify his border wall.
We need the wall, but we need it for the drugs, we need it for the human trafficking.
And more recently, Trump delights in morbid tales of Central American gang violence to justify mass deportation.
They like to knife them and cut them and let them die slowly, boy. These are animals.
But last week, Trump took his horror show to the next level by trotting out the scariest clown in his circus.
Thank you.
Stephen Miller's fear-mongering is more subtle than Trump's, but his delivery is even more chilling.
The notion that you think that this is a racist bill is so wrong and so insulting.
Miller is trying to normalize racism and xenophobia in America.
Talk to an everyday guy on the street and he'll say this is the most common sense thing that I've seen in my entire life.
But there's nothing common sense about Trump's new anti-immigration plan.
I campaigned on creating a merit-based immigration system.
The RAISE Act is not really about shifting towards a merit-based system. It's about slashing family-based immigration and reducing legal immigration by 50% over the next decade. The American dream is a family dream. It's about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for the entire family, not just your smart cousin who knows how to build apps. If the American dream dies, if America surrenders to its worst impulses, if we decide we're no longer a family-friendly country, then we've lost our national identity. Then we all become this guy.
Get him out of here. Throw him out.
This administration seems to play a lot on people's fears about immigration.
Yeah, but Natasha, we do have to protect our borders from Spanish.
From the Spanish?
I mean, from Spanish. The language is very
the...
dangerous. You might have heard. It's in the news a lot lately.
It's just such a strange narrative, given how much immigrants do and have done for this country. I think we need to spend more time actually applauding the contributions that immigrants make. Thank you, Mariti.
You're welcome.
Donald Trump doesn't like immigrants.
They're bringing drugs. Of course, they're criminals in many cases. They're bringing crime. Victims of immigration crime engagement. They're rapists. All of the bad dudes, and we have a lot of them, that are here illegally.
Taken from their homes and their workplaces, millions more bracing for that knock on the door.
And judging by his policies, he's trying to get you not to like them either. There's just one itty-bitty little problem with that. Immigrants are awesome. The great America Trump is nostalgic for would not have existed without immigrants. I know you've heard that like a million times, but seriously, it wouldn't. Once upon a time, accepting immigrants was kinda our thing. We've got that huge statue dedicated to the idea. But immigration isn't just beneficial for immigrants. It's great for the rest of the country too. Immigrants are more than twice as likely to start their own businesses. Immigrants commit fewer crimes. Immigrants make tasty food that I like to put in my mouth. And immigrants create a net positive for the American economy, according to 96% of labor economists. In 2010, over 40% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by immigrants or their kids. Without immigrants, we're talking no Google, no Yahoo, no eBay, no McDonald's, no Colgate. You're probably watching this on an iPhone. That wouldn't exist either. And there's another reason why the United States needs lots of immigrants right now. Here's how the U.S. Chamber of Commerce put it. The U.S. economy is facing a demographic crisis. About a fourth of the U.S. population is approaching retirement age. They're going to want to draw their Medicare and Social Security checks, and they're going to leave a huge gap in the labor market. So basically, we'll have tens of millions of jobs open, and we'll need to fill them with fresh new taxpayers to help support our grandparents. This isn't unique to the USA. In pretty much every developed country, there just aren't enough young people paying taxes to support the retired population. And with women having fewer children, we have fewer taxpayers coming up behind the baby boomers to balance it out. So what's the solution? You guessed it, more sex. Or more immigrants. Both are cool.
The truly bizarre thing here is that Trump's immediate family is full of immigrants. His mother was Scottish, his grandfather was German, and his wife, Melania, as we all know, is Slovenian.
I don't really know where Trump's from, but I do know that whenever he does speak, I have a very, very, very hard time understanding what he's talking about.
I often wonder how Trump got into this country. Maybe we do need to reform our immigration system after all.
This is the story of a deportation. Our main character is Friedrich Trump, President Donald Trump's grandfather. In 1885, young Grandpa Trump left for the US to seek better opportunities. But he failed to tell German authorities he was leaving and skipped their mandatory military service. So, Germany revoked his citizenship, and when he returned to Germany years later to resettle his family, the authorities threatened him with deportation. Because his family was homesick and didn't want to go back to the US, young Grandpa Trump begged German officials to let them stay, even writing a letter to a prince, pleading. He described how deportation would be very stressful.
We were paralyzed with fright. Our happy family life was tarnished. My wife has been overcome by anxiety, and my lovely child has become sick.
Authorities rejected his request, forcing him, his pregnant wife, and small daughter to take a boat back to the US. And that's how the Trumps ended up in America.
Mars 2030 is an open-world virtual reality experience where you get to be an astronaut living on Mars. You'll unlock pieces of Mars's history. You get to go inside of an ancient lava tube.
Let's go to Mars. Let's go to Mars.
Are you saying you're ready to give up on America? I think it's too soon for that.
No, I'm talking about virtual reality.
Oh.
We can actually go to Mars from the comforts of our own homes. But I will say, if things do start getting too out of hand here, we can then start discussing how to turn virtual reality into reality.
We can be the first immigrants on Mars. And then once we get settled there, we can start our very own merit-based immigration system.
Too soon, Natasha. Too soon.
292922. Confirm 162922.
Mars 2030 is an open-world virtual reality experience where you get to be an astronaut living on Mars in the year 2030.
Departure control frequency I gave you wrong is 1197.
This all started with a conversation that we had with a group of students at MIT Aero Astro Lab.
We were interested in understanding what it really takes to send people on a mission to Mars.
Transcargo 067 Alpha Tower 118.3.
We approached this project with the highest regard to scientific accuracy. We've been working with NASA for the last 3 years, consolidating all of the research that they've been doing. Everything that you see in the experience, we've derived from a conversation that we've had with NASA scientists or NASA personnel. For example, we actually drove the real Mars rover in the Mars yard at Johnson Space Center and recorded ambisonic audio we put 8 different microphones around the rover to grab the real audio. So you're basically feeling what it might be like to drive that rover.
Using the NASA data was a great place to start in terms of that way we know that the user is going to get an authentic experience just like it would be if they were standing on the surface of Mars.
The area that you'll be exploring in Mars 2030 is called the Marth-Vallis region. It's about 40 square kilometers of satellite data that we converted from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter HiRISE imaging device. It takes stereoscopic images, and we're able to determine the elevation data and then kind of transfer it into a game engine. So what you're seeing is a real location on Mars. It's been a candidate site to land on Mars because of its geodiversity. It'll take you a while to get across the full landscape, but within it, you'll unlock pieces of Mars's history. You get to go inside of an ancient lava tube or traverse craters that were formed billions of years ago. Personally, I think that the future of VR involves the user going into a space and interacting with it. And that's sort of why we put this all together. We didn't want to go the route of creating a 360 video and kind of just putting you in and having you on a very linear experience. We wanted for you to have the freedom to become that astronaut without having to go through the astronaut training at NASA.
Today, I am cracking open Dave Chappelle's first of 3 comedy specials for Netflix, The Age of Spin.
If Making a Murderer was about a black dude, that would be called Duh. So many different people here from so many different ethnicities. Very diverse crowd. Looks like you thought Bernie Sanders was gonna come out in this mother, but surprise. It's me.
I love Dave Chappelle.
Who doesn't love Dave Chappelle?
Like, I could sit here and just exchange lines with you from Chappelle's show or Chappelle's stand-up for the entire show.
But have you watched any of his stuff recently? He's got 2 new specials that just came out on Netflix.
Yeah, it seems to me like he still has his fastball, but there are a couple of bits that were a little bit off.
Tasted a little flat.
Yeah?
Like maybe someone left it out breathing a little too long.
Why do I feel like you're talking about wine right now?
Maybe I am.
Today, I am cracking open Dave Chappelle's first of 3 comedy specials for Netflix, The Age of Spin. And I'm sure that even though this wine is from this year, it's gonna be as mature as the finest old wines, but as fresh as the new stuff, right? Now, you will want to air it out to let some of the hype die down. I mean, after so long out of the spotlight, people are thirsty for this bottle, so it'll be good to oxidize expectations. I am getting like overtones of classic, intelligent Chappelle, but also, yep, 2017. Yeah, I'm getting like really bold notes of homophobia and transphobia. Huh, well, I'm sure they're just in there to build to a really amazing point, right? Let's give it a taste. Yes, that is really nice. I mean, right at the top, you get a healthy and accessible dose of humility.
I don't know if you ever saw on TMZ the big headline, Dave Chappelle, drunk on stage in Detroit. The article goes on to say I was booed off stage. I was booed. I did not leave.
And there's a really nice, smooth transition into insightful racial commentary.
If Making a Murderer was about a black dude, that would be called Duh.
Ooh, that's like really out of nowhere. No, that is what I thought. It's just a sour pivot with a strong punch down to gay people.
Some people just can't get over themselves. Gay people have a hard time doing that recently.
And the longer it stays in your mouth, it kind of becomes more and more bitter, and you can taste the unfortunate conflation of gender and sexuality.
And whichever one of you is gayer, that's the wife.
But, I'll give it another shot. Ooh, phew. It's a really refreshing reminder of the power of Chappelle's mind to blend something funny with something just really, really smart.
If Martin Luther King had a sneaker deal, we'd still be on the back of the bus. The Nike exec would come up, hi, Martin, we need you to tone down the talk of civil rights and blacks being humans. It's upsetting our southern distributors.
And just when your taste buds are seduced by the effervescent notes of the Chappelle we came to know and love, ooh, there is just a sharp, unmistakable tannic kick of transphobia.
I used to do business with a transgender in Hollywood. And then she walked to the head of the conference table, stare at us all, reach in a person, pull her old out and throw it on the table.
I think this is actually a blended wine. You know, it takes some of the finest racial observations, ferments them into a sophisticated palette of jokes, and then just lazily mixes it with run-of-the-mill, store-bought, homophobic and transphobic wine product for mass consumption that doesn't make a point at all. Now, since this wine seems aware of its unsavory punch, I'd have to pair this with a pungent blue cheese. A cheese so confident that it intentionally has mold. But careful though, both will taste kind of fun at first, but then that moldy tang will linger longer than you'd like it to. Bye.
90% of scientists agree already that climate change is real.
Climate deniers try to make it appear that it's a choice between the environment and the economy, but that is completely wrong.
Hey, Al Gore's back.
That must mean he's trying to educate the masses about end times.
It's been a decade since his documentary An Inconvenient Truth came out. The good news is that we're still here.
That is good news.
The Earth is still here for the most part. Now, the bad news is that while most of the world has come around to the threat of climate change, the United States seems to be going in the opposite direction.
What would it take to shift to renewables? I'm talking about breaking the impasse. Virtually every nation in the entire world agreed to get to zero greenhouse emissions. It is unprecedented.
Our plan will end the EPA.
90% of scientists agree already that climate change is real. The resistance against climate change deniers is very, very strong.
The large carbon polluters have worked very hard and spent lots of money to try to fool people into believing the crisis is not real.
Do you believe that it's been proven that CO2 is the primary control knob
for climate. I would not agree that it's a primary contributor to the global warming that we see.
Some of the climate deniers try to make it appear that it's a choice between the environment and the economy. But solar jobs in the United States are now growing 17 times faster than other jobs in the United States.
The Paris Accord is very unfair at the highest level.
I think what happened is he has surrounded himself with this rogues gallery of climate deniers coming out of the fossil fuel polluters, and they have control of his thinking on this issue.
There's this scene in the movie where we can actually feel your frustration.
The next generation would be justified in looking back at us and asking, what were you thinking? Couldn't you hear what the scientists were saying? Couldn't you hear what Mother Nature was screaming at you?
I put that aside and search for new and better ways to communicate the truth about the climate crisis.
The combination of sea level rise and storm surge would put the ocean water into the 9/11 memorial site, which was then under construction.
And I think that where Trump is concerned, he has isolated himself. The states and cities and businesses are moving forward without Donald Trump.
What can people do to save their cities that are at risk?
We can solve this, but the hope is based on the assumption that people will put political pressure on elected leaders to change not just the light bulbs, but the policies so that we move more quickly.
In 2017, an inconvenient truth could refer to climate change,
fake news,
science. There really are so many options.
Or that the show's almost over. That's inconvenient.
Oh.
But before we go, I want to say this show would not have been made possible without the assistance of a lot of immigrants and people from immigrant families.
I'd also like to add that I personally would not be possible were it not for two immigrants, my mother
There
and
you
father.
go.
Thank you to them for doing whatever it is they did.
Shout out. Hey, Mom.